As a scientist, specifically, a geophysicist, I have always considered myself a man of science, dismissing anything that detracted from the observable and measurable as fantasy. Little did I know that my understanding of reality would change as a result of an NDE I had after losing consciousness from falling into an ice fissure during an Antarctic expedition. That day, we had been tasked with investigating strange electromagnetic signals detected beneath the ice. Unlike the usual random bursts of energy, these signals pulsed in an unnatural way, leading us to conclude that they were unlikely to have been caused by a natural phenomenon. Although they defied explanation, some of my colleagues suggested that the pulses might be emerging from geothermal hotspots or hidden lakes. Excited about what we might find, we set up camp near a drilling site in one of the remotest sections of Antarctica, an ice shelf where the sun barely skimmed the horizon, giving us just a few hours of daylight. On that particular morning, I had an uneasy sensation in my stomach, sensing that something wasn't quite right. Dismissing it as nerves, I pressed on and we began to drill the ice around 7 in the morning in a zone where the pulses were the strongest. The day started like any other research day, with its interesting challenges in the beautiful yet often treacherous icy wilderness. A few hours had passed, however, when we began to receive strange static on our radio communication devices and our GPS devices began to glitch. As we listened intently to the radio, we began to make out what sounded like ominous whispering. The sound was so unusually spooky that we started to feel as though the environment itself was protesting our presence. It was 11:42 a.m. when a fissure suddenly opened beneath my feet, and I began to descend into the abyss it revealed. I could hear a colleague of mine shriek as I plummeted into the darkness before my body collided with the hard surface at the base of the fissure. The force of the impact knocked me right out of my body, and immediately afterward, I found myself looking down at my twisted limbs sprawled at the bottom of the crevasse. Yet, rather than feeling pain, I experienced an overwhelming serenity and detachment, much like an onlooker observing something curious rather than something alarming. As I regarded my twisted form, I became aware of two figures standing near the edge of the fissure, radiating a soft light. Although I couldn't discern the details of their facial features, the sublime love and power they emanated were palpable to my senses. Suddenly, I began to feel a gentle yet insistent force drawing me upward toward a tunnel of pure light. The tunnel felt alive, humming with an ethereal energy that I could sense with every fiber of my being. As I entered the tunnel, I instinctively knew I was crossing a boundary between life and death, a threshold that, once crossed, severs one's connection to the physical world. "James," I heard a voice call, a voice whose tone warmed my entire being, filling it with hope. Instinctively, I knew it was Jesus' voice, the voice of the abiding love presence at the edge of my awareness, and as I made that connection, all my skepticism about Jesus and the afterlife vanished. Jesus communicated to me that I had been brought there so that he might convey a message for me to share with others. Suddenly, I found myself looking down at Antarctica from a vantage point far above the Earth. Where one would ordinarily see ice, however, I saw man-made structures, a network of buildings forming entire cities buried beneath miles of snow and ice. Some of those structures had a futuristic, geometric design, while others were reminiscent of the ancient civilizations of legend. In Antarctica, Jesus spoke gently, explaining that the structures hidden beneath the ice were far older than recorded human history and had been sealed away for reasons beyond our comprehension of reality. He explained that the Antarctic ice walls, those towering edges of the continent that explorers throughout history have described, weren't simply natural phenomena but rather seals designed to keep an ancient, powerful darkness contained, put in place by a power far greater than any Earth government. Through a series of visions, I saw global leaders, aware of the secrets beneath the ice, planning to gradually reveal the mysteries to the public, branding them as an incredible archaeological discovery of extraterrestrial nature. In a terrifying vision, I saw dark entities, older than humankind, lurking in wait for the moment when the seals would be breached. Then the vision shifted, and I was shown a not too distant future in which politicians and scientists, standing on podiums before news reporters, announced the groundbreaking discoveries made in Antarctica. In that vision, I watched as those revered by others declared that the artifacts and technologies uncovered there proved that we, as a species, had misunderstood our origins. Framing these technologies as the next leap in human evolution, they would go on to say that harnessing them to our advantage would herald an era of global peace, unity, and progress on an unprecedented scale. I saw how the dark force would allure people through subtle manipulation. Those ensnared by its charm would embrace whatever it offered wholeheartedly, becoming irreversibly entangled in its deceptive web. I saw that the ancient beings would masquerade as benevolent, our friends, even going so far as to claim that they created humankind. They would declare their intent to guide humanity into a new golden age, all the while concealing their endgame. Satan's greatest weapon has always been deception. He will not force the world into submission, instead, he he will make them crave the lie. Therein lies the real danger. Millions of people will willingly believe in a false salvation if it promises comfort, progress, and a sense of transcendent purpose, Jesus said resoundingly. It was upon hearing his words that I realized the vision I was being shown was a call to action, and from that moment, an urgency awakened in my spirit to warn people about what was coming. No one would believe me were I to relate my vision to others, I voiced. Your task is not to force them to believe but to speak the truth. Those who seek light will recognize the truth in your words, Jesus replied, his tone expressing infinite patience. Then, the landscape around me shifted. I saw in that vision a time when technology would offer humanity cures for terminal illnesses and reveal methods for harvesting energy never before considered. I saw a time when technology would be used to extend lifespans, and in such discoveries, it would seem as though we had finally uncovered the secret to the fountain of youth. I saw lines of people eagerly receiving an upgrade to something that had been fused with them on a prior occasion, a device that bestowed immediate improvements in health and mental acuity. I saw governments and spiritual leaders alike praising the technology as a miracle, yet in the spiritual realm, I was able to see how their connection to God was severed by the technology. What you see is the mark. It will come as a choice wrapped in promise, not as a mandate shackling one's spirit. Dumbfounded and bewildered by the things that were revealed to me, Jesus turned to me. Share what you have seen, for time is short, he said. Jesus faded from my awareness as I became increasingly aware of the tunnel of radiant light. Even the brightness of the heavenly light dissolved as I began to awaken in my body in a hospital bed. Startled medical staff surrounded me, bearing expressions of astonishment. Your heart had stopped for nearly 12 minutes. By all medical standards you should be dead, one doctor explained. Even though I listened to their words, my head was spinning with all that I had experienced during the NDE. Nurses checked my vitals while the lead physician asked me if I remembered what happened just before I lost consciousness. I remember attempting to recount all that I experienced during my NDE to the medical staff, and although they listened, I knew by their expressions that they regarded my experience as a very vivid hallucination caused by a traumatic head injury. One of the nurses, however, listened intently as tears welled in her eyes. In the weeks following the accident, I struggled with the enormity of what I had been shown as I resumed my routine job analyzing data. Yet that life seemed inconsequential compared to the gravity of the unpropitious future revealed to me during the NDE. Albeit apathetically, I carried out my duties, yet at night, I had trouble sleeping. My dreams were often plagued by images of hidden ice cities, ominous shapes moving underground, and the machinations of egomaniacal world leaders scheming to reveal their discovery in a way that would advance their agenda of domination and control. During those weeks, I contacted other scientists, some of whom confided that they had heard rumors about classified drills, but they seemed uncomfortable discussing them. My life resumed its old routine, and all that had happened during my experience would have remained in the hidden recesses of my mind if not for the steady drip of announcements alluding to odd structures beneath the ice, as reported by the mainstream media. Somewhat surprisingly, my colleagues, who had always dismissed fringe theories, began whispering amongst themselves, suggesting that maybe there was more to the story than they had been made aware of. Their ponderings reminded me that I had been tasked with letting others know, and I began to feel the weight of my duty pressing upon me. In spite of my fears about being labeled as a crackpot, I began to share my experience with friends and family. Surprisingly, amidst the skepticism, there were those who wanted to believe, which made my effort feel somewhat worthwhile. Then one day I received an encrypted message from someone claiming to be a former government contractor who had participated in classified Antarctic expeditions. "You're not wrong, James, they've known for decades it's already too late," he said in a chilling message. His message left me with a foreboding sense that perhaps the wheels were already turning too fast to stop, yet it also strengthened my resolve to warn as many people as possible. It was upon receiving his message that I decided to document my entire NDE to share my story with others, even at the risk of losing the respect of my colleagues, if for no other reason than to speak my truth. In doing so, I would be speaking about the things that lie at the zenith of what I consider real and true, the things I experienced during my NDE. I wrestled with the idea of returning to Antarctica. Some part of me wanted to gather physical proof, but I quickly realized that I didn't need to see more than I had already been shown, and that proof wouldn't change most people's minds anyway. As global media begins revealing details about the technological marvels found in the ruins of ancient civilizations beneath the Antarctic ice, world leaders will frame these discoveries as the dawn of a new era, promising breakthroughs in medicine, energy harvesting, and even human evolution. It will be presented as a unifying moment for the world, masking the deception and the malevolent forces behind it, the ancient entities beneath the ice. Their endgame, the mark, will at first be seductive in its appeal, merely offered as an option. Eventually, however, there will be a push for the masses to upgrade, with the promise of an enhanced quality of life, freedom from disease, heightened intelligence, and abilities augmented to be an asset once again. Yet concealed beneath this allure is a devastating truth: the technology will sever your deeper connection to the divine. In ending my story, I would like to say to you, the listener, to stay firm in your faith and truth, and to seek guidance through prayer. Keep your heart open, yet question the evidence placed before you. The light of the divine, of love, is what is really important to the core of your being. Is a real force, originating from a source infinitely greater than those science can measure, a force that will endure long after your body fails.